Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to Legacy of Kain, Janos Audron, a character study by Strictly Fantasy. This is the final video on the playlist of Legacy of Kain. We have gone through, I think it was like around 14 videos or so, dealing with an entire family. You know, you have your sons, you have your fathers, you have your supposed mothers, you have your uncles and your extended cousins. You know, it's just been a very big family affair, I would say, because everyone is connected to everyone, whether through time or space. You know, everybody knows someone who knows the main person, who is Raziel or Kain. Between those two, the branches spread out. Yeah. So we got to see Kain, Raziel, Mobius, the Elder God, the Helden, Ariel, Malachi. I still can't pronounce that guy's name. Or Malachiah, I think. Yeah. Zephon, Rahab, Duma, Terrell, Malek, Varador, William the Just, aka the Nemesis, and then finally Janos Audron. You know, all of these characters, all interwoven, all interconnected, all of them having their own destiny, if I can say that. And it all leads up to Kain and Raziel making his decision about what is he going to do from these two people. Yeah. Okay, let's continue with the last episode or the last video. Janos Audron. 3, 2, 1, go.
Janos Audron. It is heartening after all these years to hear my name spoken without contempt.
In a world like Nosgoth, where most of its inhabitants are corrupt and perpetuate their nastiness against each other, it's refreshing to see a character who genuinely wishes to be good. As Nosgoth's oldest surviving vampire, Janos Audron was once a noble winged being before he was cursed with an insatiable blood thirst. Though little was known about his exact role in the ancient vampire Hilden War, he is theorized to be involved in the events that led to ending the war, including the creation of the Pillars, the binding, and banishment of the Hilden race to the demon dimension. After the Hilden's expulsion from Nosgoth, Janos was, like the rest of his people, affected by the blood curse and its ramifications. He became sterile and imprisoned in immortal flesh. Unlike many other ancients, however, who took their lives in an effort to rejoin their god, Janos came to accept the curse, believing it to be
And their god is the Elder God. Okay.
the price vampires had to pay to keep the Hilden at bay. In the following eons, Janos worked to rebuild the vampire race. He believed fervently in the ancient prophecies, which foretold the coming of a vampire champion who would save and redeem Nosgoth. The champion was destined to wield a legendary sword, and Janos, determined to shape prophecy into reality, endeavoured to create such a weapon. Although his human apprentice Varador would be the one to forge the Reaver, Janos was the architect behind much of the sorcery woven into the sword. He laced it with magical properties, granting it the power to drain its victims of their lifeblood. After its making, he was then appointed by his people as the secret 10th Guardian, protector of the Reaver Blade. Eventually, Janos discovered the means to pass the vampiric curse on, so that his race could survive in some form. His apprentice was the first human to be turned, allowing for a new breed of vampires to flourish, one that owed its very existence to Janos. As the father of this new race, Janos played a big part in trying to ensure that the recently born human guardians of the Pillars would become vampires. He actively encouraged and enforced a morally questionable policy which involved adopting, and where necessary abducting, and turning human-born guardians into vampires when they came of age.
That is going to cause problems with the parents. Abducting their children and turning them into vampires? At least discuss with them, talk to them about what is so special about their child and their child is required for the stability of Nosgoth, you know. Talk to them instead of abducting children.
Many humans were kidnapped from their families and turned against their will, which inevitably led to rebellion. The Pillar Guardians Mobius and Mortanius led an insurrection against their former masters, the likes of which devastated the vampires. Ancients and turned vampires were massacred alike, driving them to abandon the citadel and retreat to the most isolated wastes of Nosgoth. With humanity now claiming the Pillars of Nosgoth for themselves, nearly all traces of ancient vampire lore and history were wiped out and left to ruin. Time flowed on and Janos was forced to retreat to the mountains overlooking the village of Ustenheim. Sadly, during his many years spent hidden away, he became the last of his kind. The other blue-winged beings died out, leaving all but Janos and his bloodline as the survivors of the vampire species. He spent what must have felt like an eternity in seclusion, growing distant and detached from the world, including Vorador, who had lost faith in the old prophecies after having suffered so much at the hands of humanity. In spite of all these losses, Janos would continue to guard the Reaver for centuries into Nosgoth's early history, patiently awaiting the arrival of the vampire savior. While only making his first physical appearance during the events of Soul Reaver 2, Janos is in fact mentioned by Kain in the 1996 Blood Omen title.
In my travels I learned much about the legend of Janos Audron. Here in this quaint pastoral village of Ustenheim, that dark enemy was born. Janos preyed upon its peasants until he was finally hunted down and executed.
That doesn't sound like a very kind vampire. Or, a benevolent vampire. That sounds like a menace. Yeah.
During Kain's journey through Ustenheim, he comes across a villa containing the secret entrance to the Heart of Darkness artifacts. In Silicon Knight's Secrets Guide for the game, this villa is labelled Janos Audron's house. When coupled with Kain's comments, the original developers appear to be suggesting that Janos was born in the village, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, given what we learn in later plot developments. It's possible that the developers of Blood Omen had intended Janos to be a renowned vampire that was born human and then later turned, similar to Vorador before the later Soul Reaver titles retconned this. However, a possible in-universe explanation could be that with the ancients basically extinct at this point, their history dismantled and forgotten, the humans of the era assumed Janos was turned, as was the norm for vampires of that age. Additionally, Janos' so-called house may have just been named after him to reflect the nature of the artifacts collected there, rather than the actual residence of the infamous vampire.
So this was the legendary Janos Audron, reputed to have been the most ancient and diabolical vampire to have ever existed.
Isn't it weird seeing yourself taking out the heart of Janos Audron? Isn't it so weird?
According to folklore, he lived high in the cliffs of Nosgoth's northern mountains and preyed mercilessly on the defenseless villagers below.
Although he was demonized by the humans as a barbarous monster, Janos doesn't hold any grudges towards humanity for their beliefs and actions. He has no hidden agenda, no selfish, self-serving goal. He only wants what's best for his people. In Soul Reaver 2, our protagonist Raziel finally gets a chance to meet the legendary vampire in person towards the later stages of the game. When he arrives at the summit of Janos' balcony chamber, Raziel cautiously approaches the striking winged figure standing at the far end. He doesn't quite know what to expect. After all, Raziel has crossed time and space, but the only information he's learned about the infamous vampire comes from the folklore which demonizes him. As Janos slowly turns to the sound of our protagonist's voice, Raziel is surprised to see that this is no demon, but a grace.
His eyes are so powerful, Janos Audron's eyes, they're so powerful. The way they're so big, and then it has that yellow iris in it, it's just really, his eyes are very powerful, yeah.
Peaceful, angelic being who radiates a patient, priest-like demeanor.
Raziel? My child, what have they done to you?
I have been dragged through hell and back. All it seems to reach this moment. But I don't yet know why.
For thousands of years I have waited, alone here, losing faith. At the time of the binding, 9 guardians were called to serve the pillars, and I was summoned as the 10th guardian, the keeper of the Reaver, the weapon of our salvation. Over time, our race died out until I alone remained, sustained only by my obligation to you and by my guardianship of the blade.
And the other 9? Why did their guardianship not sustain them?
I don't know. As our race dwindled, the humans prospered. I have watched over the centuries as our history faded into myth and finally receded altogether. The humans have forgotten us entirely and claimed the pillars for themselves, wholly ignorant of their true purpose. To them, I am merely a devil, the origin of their vampire plague.
Why would the pillars summon human guardians then, if they are meant to be served by vampires?
The pillars choose their guardians from birth, Raziel, and vampires are no longer born. This is the crux of our dilemma, and this is the terrible irony. With their vampire purge, the members of the Circle have assaulted the very architects of the pillars they are sworn to protect. They have embarked on a treacherous path. With every vampire they kill, the humans are slitting their own throats.
It's interesting Janos knows Raziel by name here.
Yeah, that's interesting. But what I'm trying to figure out is why didn't he try to communicate with the Council of Nine? The new chosen ones to protect the pillars. Why hasn't he been trying to talk to them about what these pillars are really about and what's really necessary to continue the protection and the control of the pillars? I understand that he said that humans started to vilify him and forget the history, but you should have been there in some form or shape. You should have been there continuously trying to inform humanity that, guys, I'm not your enemy. I'm not the person that you should see as an enemy. I'm here trying to help you. Yes, I am a vampire, and yes, I am one of the fathers of all vampires, but I am not like my children. Yeah, I don't know. You could have done something instead of just staying up here in the mountains.
He has never met Raziel before in person, and is rather shocked by the wraith's ragged appearance. Looking at this scene, whilst appreciating the greater narrative of the series as a whole, we can speculate that Janos was aware of the name of the vampire champion from prophecy, but likely knew next to nothing else about him. We can see that Janos is immediately concerned about Raziel, and is perhaps a bit disheartened, as this was not the heroic figure depicted in the murals. Raziel has the correct features. He has blue skin, cloven hands, and wings, but
like I said before, when Strictly Fantasy was talking about the prophecies, and then they showed us the artistry and the imagery of how the supposed heroes are supposed to look like, I was like, this is not accurate enough. This is very vague. It's open due to interpretation, and you can't really put your faith in how the images look like and you think that this is how the future is going to turn out. I've said this before. We need detailed information, and that image was not detailed, really.
it appears nearly destroyed and looks more demon than angelic savior. Still, Janos was convinced this creature was the prophesized hero and converses with Raziel in a gentle and paternal manner. It says something that in a series where most characters are cruel, uncaring bastards, Janos was prepared to give his own life to protect Raziel. When the Seraphan Inquisitors breached the upper chambers and attacked, Janos teleported Raziel away to the sealed fire forge before fending off his assailants alone. The Seraphan proved to be too much for the vampire, who could do little to resist the debilitating effects of Mobius's staff. They ripped out his beating heart before retreating with the Reaver blade. As he lay there dying, Janos shared a few final words with Raziel, affirming the Wraith's holy status among their people and
He's still alive even though they took out his heart? Wow.
urging him to retake the Reaver.
Forgive me. I'm sorry. I failed you. No, Razia. Perhaps This was my true purpose. Simply to save your life this once.
While I have taken yours.
Embrace your destiny, Raziel. You must reclaim the river. It was forged for you and you alone. Without it, there is no hope.
Wow, with his death, the entire complex starts shaking. Oh.
As I backed away from Janos's body, I was overwhelmed by a sense of self-loathing so deep I could barely contain it. In that instant, I rejected all that I ever was, and embraced the role Janos had safeguarded for me so patiently throughout the centuries. I knew then what I had to do, the task for which I was uniquely prepared. I would pursue the Sarafan dogs to their loathsome fortress and avenge Janos Audron's murder. Mobius would pay dearly for his treachery, and my Sarafan brethren would reap the horrors they had sown. I would retake the stolen Riva, which was rightfully mine. And finally, when all these debts had been paid, I would reclaim Janos Audron's heart.
I don't know why, but I'm getting an energy of Kratos from God of War. Not the new installments of God of War, but you know, the PlayStation 2 and 3 God of War. Yeah, like he's giving me this energy of Kratos. Revenge.
From their filthy, unworthy hands. If the heart was truly imbued with the power to restore vampiric unlife, its highest purpose was clear to me. I would restore the heart to Janos, and thus undo the vile crime committed by my abominable former self.
Raziel was deeply moved by Janos' sacrifice. He vowed to avenge the murder committed by his past self and reclaim the heart belonging to Janos, which would later become known as the Heart of Darkness. There were rumors.
It's like, you messed up, boy. You messed up. Now it's time to die.
Is that the heart had the ability to restore vampiric unlife, and Raziel reasoned if he could find it, perhaps Janos could return from the dead. This would become the driving motivation for our protagonist in both the climax of Soul Reaver 2 and throughout most of Defiance. It is clear that Raziel's meeting with Janos had a profound impact on him, and it's not difficult to see why. The last character Raziel considered a father figure since being raised as a vampire was Kain. That was until Kain committed the ultimate act of betrayal by condemning Raziel to the abyss. Nearly every person or creature Raziel has come across since then has sought to use or destroy him. It's no wonder then why Janos is the only person the Wraith Raziel looks up to.
I don't like this Janos version here. I don't like him, no. The eyes are not as prominent as they were in that previous game. Yeah, I don't like this new version of him. And he looks like he doesn't eat.
He considers a mentor and ally. For the first time in eons, Raziel found someone who treated him with genuine kindness and respect. I suppose it was inevitable then that both sets of
even the feet, they look like, I don't know, bird feet. I don't know, that was just weird. Yeah.
villains would end up using Raziel's soft spot for Janos to their advantage. On the one hand, we have Mobius and the Elder God, who orchestrated the Ancient's death by having Raziel lead the Sarafan to Janos, and then proceed to use the Wraith's anger to try to have him entrapped in the Reaver Blade. On the other hand, we have the Hilden, who lured Raziel to seek out the Heart of Darkness, to deliver to them a durable vessel to possess. The Hilden required the blood of their ancient enemy to further their plans, and Janos was the perfect candidate. Most impressive of all,
not perfect candidate, he was the only candidate. All the other vampires were gone, so he's the only candidate.
They had fooled Raziel into battling Kain to the death to obtain it, since Janos' heart had resided in Kain. Janos' restoration only occurs in the 4th timeline. In previous timelines, his death at the hands of the Seraphim is final, but it's really unfortunate that a character who is known for his compassion and wisdom is fated to either die a horrible death or be twisted and warped by the Hilden Lord. Whenever Janos is on screen, he's polite and pleasant and offers plain answers. He plays it straight with Raziel in defiance, and doesn't go about giving half-truths or trying to mislead him. When Raziel returned to Janos after purifying the Wraith Blade, he found the old vampire anxiously gazing at the pillars. They had reached that pivotal moment when the younger Kain refused to sacrifice, causing the pillars to collapse, which sent out a shockwave so powerful that it knocked Raziel clean off his feet. When Raziel regained his footing, he found the Hilden Lord now in command of the Ancient's body. In an effort to prevent the Hilden's goals, Raziel battled the possessed Janos, but was unable to bring himself to kill the person who had treated him like a son. The Hilden Lord once again took advantage of Raziel's integrity and unleashed an overwhelming counterattack, dissolving Raziel's material body before flying away.
Dissolving it? Meaning like he's dead now? Oh.
With Janos under their control, his body was used to open a gate between the realms, allowing the Hilden Lord's forces to breach through the tear between realities and re-inhabit the material realm. However, they were still tethered to the demon dimension.
No, but then what is this Helden wearing? Really? Or maybe it's a female version of the Helden, I don't know, but oh gosh, it's so weird. With this, like, evening gown dress, like, it's just weird. It's just weird.
While he had recovered his natural body, the Hilden Lord was not finished with Janos yet. Janos was imprisoned within the device, which had been designed during the Great War to destroy all species except the Hilden race. There he remained trapped for 400 years, where his lifeblood was drained and used to feed the mass, a powerful life form capable of killing any living thing with a thought. Without his precious lifeblood to sustain him, Janos devolved into a monstrous beast. He was completely unrecognizable in this form. In fact,
Kinda looks like, it wasn't Rahab, I think it was Torel, maybe? Or Duma. You know, the one with the big giant, like he looked like a bat, but with no wings. And he had those big ears. I think it was Duma. I think. Oh, or maybe it was Torel, I can't remember.
When Kain killed the mass, freeing Janos, he was taken aback by the sudden change in appearance of the being he thought to be a hideous creature. Janos was well aware of the Hilden's intention to use the device to murder vampires and humans alike, and was most likely the same plan he tried to warn Raziel about in Defiance. After being used as a puppet and suffering as their prisoner for centuries, it's no surprise that Janos recklessly joined the fight against the Hilden in Blood Omen 2. From his perspective, the Hilden had cost him everything. They forced him to destroy Raziel, the vampire savior, and they were almost successful in using his blood to wipe out nearly every living thing from the face of Nosgoth.
You? Yes, your prisoner, from whose blood you built your evil plans.
What could be more righteous than to take our revenge and your freedom from the same source? Tortured eons of suffering are too good for you, vampire.
But not for you, Hilden, who has dared to set a corrupting foot upon this world after your banishment. Return to the demon dimension in which you belong.
And by what right, cursed one, did you send my kind to that place of evil?
By what right did you lay on us the curse that drove us from the light and made us predators of humankind?
Yeah, both of you are pointing fingers at each other, but ultimately, you know, the vampires are the ones who cast them into the demon, underworld, and the Helden, out of revenge, they made you guys into these blood-sucking, thirsty vampires. But ultimately, the Helden did not want to follow your religion. The Elder God, praying to the Elder God, venerating the Elder God. They wanted their own path, and you guys didn't accept that. I don't know whether it was the Elder God who persuaded the vampires to attack the Helden, or was it the Helden who just attacked the vampires? I can't remember who started the war. But, it's just how it is. You guys hurt each other with your most diabolical and advanced weapons and advanced techniques. And now we're here because of your guys fighting. So you're both to blame.
It was justice for our banishment from the world. You see what it has made of our once fair race.
I see you have taken your true form at last.
Then go and see what it makes of you.
Kain, the sword!
Look at his face. Oh gosh, he looks like a druggie or something. I don't know. Like, the eyes are wide open, right? But then it's so weird and his face is so squished. Oof, they really did torture this guy.
I sentence you to the hell of your own making. A prisoner for all time.
No! Kain!
Wait a second.
No! Kain!
Oh no, 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 no. You have wings. You can fly. Just fly up.
I didn't think about that. I didn't think about. I was wondering why is Strictly Fantasy rewinding and laughing. I'm like, what's so funny? But now I understand. Oh gosh.
Up. Anyway, despite not using his natural talents, Janos falls into the demon realm, presumably to be sealed away forever. It's unclear whether Janos would have returned for another entry had the series continued, but chances are he may have, as some of the ideas which were considered for the next cancelled installment included having Kain explore the demon dimension. At the end of the day, Janos is one of the only characters in the games who tries to do the right thing, and he's nearly always portrayed as helpful, gentle, and wise. However, the reveal that he is in fact a devout follower of the Elder God, along with the rest of his race, does cast a shadow over everything he's done. Even though his intentions are noble, banishing the Hilden race to another dimension simply because they refused to worship the Elder God was clearly a reprehensible act. Still,
Exactly.
Janos' notable flaws are a result of him being misguided more than anything else. He just didn't realise the creature he's been serving is an eldritch abomination, masquerading as a benevolent, righteous god. While there is plenty left to discuss regarding the Heart of Darkness, I'll have to save that for a video for another time. Do leave a like if you enjoyed this character study, and feel free to share your thoughts on Janos in the comments below. I do read all of your comments, and although I haven't the time to reply to every single one, I appreciate the effort by all of you to keep the discussion going. Let's continue to keep Legacy of Kain alive. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.
Okay guys, that was Legacy of Kain, Janos Audron, a character study by Strictly Fantasy. Yeah, Janos may have been a good guy, right? But he was worshipping an elder god that was not a good god. It was a being that fed on the souls of those who had been killed or had died, and you know, the Helden did not want to worship something like that. They didn't want to worship the same creature that the vampires were worshipping. They wanted their own destiny. They wanted to follow their own religion, probably. And you know, all of this situation, all of this problem that has been festering for all of these years, you know, back and forth, whether in the past or the future or the present, has all stemmed from this war between the Helden and the vampires. And you know, do I say that the Helden side is evil? I don't know. I can't really say that they're evil, because you know, they're just fighting for their own freedom. They're fighting for their own existence, their own choice in life. They don't want to follow what the vampires are doing. And I guess I could say that the vampires during that time, they were also like antagonizers to the Helden. They were being manipulated or controlled by the Elder God to do his bidding. And yeah, I don't know, with Janos Audron and his decision to abduct children, and make them into vampires. I understand why he had to do that, why he had to make them into vampires, but not necessarily the reason on why he had to abduct the children. You know, he shouldn't have done that. He really shouldn't have done that. Him and all the other vampires who were still alive during that time, he shouldn't have done that. He probably should have consulted with the parents, told them what's their child's future going to be, you know, how important they are to Nosgoth as a whole. And maybe through that kind of discussion and being convinced that way, it would have been far more better for the vampires, you know. They would have been having a far more cordial relationship with humankind. However, for the fledgling vampires, those that were created by the, you know, the original vampires, I'm not sure. Because those vampires, they seem to not care much for humanity. They don't really care how they treat humanity. They see us as, you know, cattle to be corralled into a facility and then, you know, drank of all of our blood and thrown away. So yeah, the second generation of vampires I'm not sure about, but the first generation of vampires, they should have done more while they were still alive. They should have done more in terms of communicating with humanity, trying to make us understand like what's going on with these 9 pillars, why they're so important, why the guardians that are to be chosen have to become vampires and for what reason. But oh well, what's done is done. Can't really change that past. We can only change the past that revolves around the Soul Reaver and the wielder of the Soul Reaver, Raziel, and Kain and Janos. Well, I don't know if Janos really wielded the Soul Reaver. He was passing it down to Raziel, but you know, and yeah, it was interesting. It was really, really interesting. And like everybody has said in my comment section, Janos Audron was a kind vampire, very kind vampire compared to the second generation of vampires. Yeah, those ones, even the third generation, in terms of Kain creating his sons from the from the Certifying Order. So yeah, all those vampires, no. The first generation, the guys with the wings, yes, those guys were good. Guys, I guess that's it for today. And yeah, I'm not sure if there's any more videos on the Legacy of Kain by Strictly Fantasy, but should anything come up, I will come back to this and I'll be able to inform you guys, you know, through, what is it called again, the community messages, to tell you guys that I'm going to come back to watching the Strictly Fantasy Legacy of Kain videos. But until then, remember, if you like the video, give me a like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And if you want to check out the original video, remember the link to the video is in the description below, as well as Strictly Fantasy's YouTube channel is in the description below. Alright, bye bye.